Broadcasting the boisterous part of the fastest game in the world. So strap on your lids and lace them up, Rook. You're listening to the BarnChirpers Hockey Podcast. Take a laugh.
Come on, start over. Track.
Broadcasting the boisterous part of the fastest game in the world. So strap on your lids and lace them up, Rook. You're listening to the BarnChirpers Hockey Podcast. Take a laugh.
Clap it up, boys. Clap it up. It is not the Markstrom and Travis Show. It is the BarnChirpers Hockey Podcast. And you know where to find us all over the internet at BarnChirpers Pod. Just look for us. Hey, the Stanley Cup Finals ended, and we're back, baby. The Cats pull it out, Captain. They almost got reverse swept, but they pulled it out in Game 7 last night. Let's get into this. I mean, what are we doing? What are your thoughts? Let's talk about your whole thoughts going in, your thoughts coming out, your thoughts in general, Captain.
So I want to bring up this image one more go again.
Oh, so beautiful.
The lasting image. And I know we're kind of glossing the Cats here, but going into the playoffs, I would have picked the Panthers to win had I not already picked Stars versus Canes at the beginning of the season.
Sure, yeah.
The reason I didn't pick the Cats was because they had injuries going into the season, and both you and I, when we had the discussion about the Panthers last summer, we thought they were going to start slow. They'd probably find their way. They'd get into the playoffs, and they'd be a good team. They were the best team in hockey. I don't care what anybody says. I know that the Rangers record says that they were, but anybody who watched any Florida Panthers hockey at all this season knows they were the best team in hockey, and they deserved to win this cup. And
earned.
Absolutely. They earned this. And, again, sure, you want to talk about the Cousins and Matt Tkachuk gets in people's heads. Sure. Okay. Is there some dirty play? Sure. Okay, fine. But that does not take away from the way that they play hockey. It does not take away from Paul Maurice's coaching. It does not take away from the team that they have on the ice. There is just something specific. And look, I have to put away, the Devil's cap for a second, because they definitely hurt my boy Nico this year. They definitely were headhunting him. He's the reason Nico missed some time. But setting all that aside and just doing X's and O's and just hockey, other than the Canadians were the most fun team to watch for me, the Panthers were the best to watch. And when they're on, they're on. And you saw it last night. Like when it came down to, we have to win now, what did they do? The D shows up, Bob locks in, and they look like a Stanley Cup team. And lo and behold, they lift the cup at the end of the day.
Well, and you get, somebody that was two guys that were ghosts the whole entire series. Swaggy Verhaeghe gets on the board first, finally. And then Reinhart gets their game-winning goal. Two guys that hadn't done anything the entire series, literally nothing. I forget the scoreline, but I think each of them had 1 point or something going into Game 7, something like that. Yeah. And we talked about that in the group chat. We probably talked on this last episode, but those guys that weren't showing up, that's why we ended up in a Game 7. But when it came down to it, when it counted, they showed up, and that's what matters. And I want to give you a little stat here, Justin, because I love to do that. So, and Paul Maurice and a couple other guys said it as well in their post, right after when they're interviewing everybody, and was that we had to learn how to lose before we could learn how to win. And so not only did they lose 3 straight to figure out that they learn how to win, but going back to the 1920 season. Let me give you a little bit of stats here. So in 1920, quarterfinal loss. In 2021, round 1 loss. 21-22, round 2 loss. And of course, we know last year, 22-23, a Stanley Cup Final loss. So 4 years in a row to learn how to lose, and then get up 3-0 in this series and lose 3 in a row. They almost blew it, but they remembered that they know how to lose, so now they know how to win. And they 2-1 victory. And did you watch the full game, right? Yeah, because we were texting. Yeah. And those last 5 minutes, man, like that was just, like you said, shut down Panther hockey. Like they didn't get too aggressive. They played D. They were blocking shots. And honestly, like, and I think even Sean McDonough mentioned it, like the Oilers looked tired. They looked tired those last 5 minutes. And it makes sense because McDavid and Draisaitl played probably 6 of the last 8 minutes.
Easily, yeah.
Bouchard played 6 of the last 8 minutes. Hyman played, like those guys were double shifting, playing the whole entire last, almost 10 minutes of the game. And I get it. It's the last game of the year. You can't hold anything back, to quote Brendan Fraser. Yeah, man, they looked tired. They didn't have any gas when they pulled Skinner. And you got to come back. This is my whole long rant to get back to Panther hockey. Wear them down. And we talked about that before. They dump the puck in. They're going to hit you. And they did that in this game too. That came back. The physicality came back. I think I mentioned it in the group chat too. Like, there were a couple of, maybe we'll get into it, maybe we won't, but there was a couple of egregious things that I thought happened and I was up in arms about. A couple of penalties in the past couple games that I thought were, maybe not necessarily game changers, but it definitely had a big impact. But the Panthers lost their confidence in those 3 games. That's why they lost 3 in a row. They didn't have their confidence. And I think Okposo mentioned it, and Verhaeghe might have mentioned it too, that they got into game 4 and it was so close that they forgot to keep the eye on the prize. Like, you still have to play Panther hockey to get there. But yeah, their confidence was shook for 3 games, and they almost blew it, but they put it together and they pulled it out.
It's at this point I want to tip the cap to the Oil, man.
Oh, for sure. I'm not taking anything away from them. No.
For sure. Like last season, at the beginning of this season, we kept saying, I'll believe it from the Oil when I see it. I saw it. You know what I mean? They ultimately don't get the dub, but they embarrassed Florida in game 4. It was ugly. 8-1. And that was the worst game of the entire series. It was just ugly. It wasn't fun. Every other game, I missed game 6, but the 5 games that I saw minus game 4 were all good.
Game 6 wasn't fun either. I mean, it was a better game by the Panthers, but it wasn't fun. I mean, to start off with another shorthanded goal. And that's another thing that the Oil embarrassed them with too, is special teams.
Yeah.
Not only on the power play, but on the penalty kill too.
Yep.
The Oilers' penalty kill outscored the Panthers' power play.
Yep.
Because they had 2 shorthanded goals. Like, that's embarrassing in back-to-back games to start off the game. So, like, that's embarrassing. So, yeah, I'm handing it to the Oil. Like, they definitely proved to me that they have grit to do an edge thing there. But and think about it. They were in essentially last place in November, and they turned it around. They got into playoff position, and they made a push all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals to lose 3 in a row and almost get swept. So, like, tip of the cap. Like, hey, man, you guys did it. And I was also really paying attention to Skinner too, and he didn't seem like he got rattled at all. Whereas last year, when a couple goals went in, he seemed like he got rattled, but he seemed very poised and very, like, in the zone, even though obviously they lost last night. But, that second goal went in, and he didn't look like he was shook from it. Like, okay, whatever. So I'm happy to see that too, and I hope that continues into next season, that his confidence stays up, because he can be a decent little goaltender. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
is he going to be a Vezina trophy winner? I think that's hard to say right now, but he's capable of stealing a game. We've seen it.
I think to that point, like the Oil will win a cup with McDavid. Like it's going to happen. And I didn't, I kind of had that same feeling I get every year from Toronto. Like, show me something. And they did. So I believe that a couple pieces in the Oil are right back, that it isn't out of the question that this same club, again, with a couple pieces interchanged. And I think Skinner's a key piece. I think he's a quality 1A for them. And to your point, he never looked rattled. And that's important. Like this season's going to be big for them going forward. So like, I'm pretty geeked up that it went the way it did. And selfishly as a hockey fan, that it went 7 and all the games were good minus the one. Right. And the team that I was rooting for that I picked won. Like seeing Florida pull it out, ultimately 30 years of existence, they finally get one. And just the story just in general for Florida, this being their third cup. They went last year like, as Cinderella darlings, but then just completely resetting this year. And just, again, it's funny that, I kind of mentioned this before, like overcoming the injury odds at the beginning, like you, me, probably a lot of hockey analysts were saying that they're not going to be able to get it done because they're starting behind the 8 ball with injuries. Proved wrong, man. Like it's depth, it's good hockey and quality coaching. Like they did everything you're supposed to. And not only that, they beat the Rangers and the Canes going into that. So like that, man, all that is plus for me as a Devils fan. So,
well, not only that, I mean, it couldn't be coached by a better coach in Paul Maurice. Like I absolutely, he might be my favorite coach of all time at this point. Just such a down to earth dude, it seems like. And not only that, he's got really good dry humor. But and in his kind of exit when Emily Kaplan was talking to him, and he was like, he basically wished that the Jets would win the next one. Like you got to think about a guy like Paul Maurice. He walked away from the Winnipeg Jets a couple of years ago because he was like, this team needs a new voice. So a totally unselfish move in honestly a league where there's only 32 jobs, right? Mm-hmm. Well, 32 now, but at the time there's only 31 jobs available. And he's essentially walking away from guaranteed money because he knew that he wasn't the right fit for that team. Like, can I love you anymore, Paul? Right. Like, can you adopt me? Honestly. So I just think about that. And then he, takes the job for the Florida Panthers, a couple of years ago, and leads them to victory now, So I just absolutely, like you said, I love the story. Okposo getting a cup, which it was probably his final NHL game last night to go out winning the cup. I love that. Obviously, I wish it could have been with Buffalo, but I love that it's with this Panthers team. So, just overall, I am elated and joyful that the Cats got it done. And honestly, we talked about it. I would have enjoyed it if the Oil won too, because in both cases, like both teams haven't had success in a long. Well, obviously the Panthers haven't had any true success, but the Oil hasn't had any success since the '80s. So I would have been okay with them winning it. And like you said, Oil will definitely win one. I would say in the next 3 years. I think with McDavid and Draisaitl, this team was the best Oilers team that they've ever brought into the playoffs, in my view. Of course, not looking at the 80s and whatnot, but best team in decades to make a run.
To that point, though, we talked about, kind of the stars. We tipped the hat to the Oil, but I gotta wag my finger a little bit. Dry didn't show up.
No, he didn't.
Specifically last night, he was a goose egg, like zeros across the board, man. Man's went out for a skate. We were worried about, McDavid. Is McDavid going to show up? Because he's the guy. He's number one. To that point, he did. 8 8 points in 2 games, I believe, in game 4 and 5.
And he beat Gretzky's assist record.
Right, which gets him the Conn Smythe. We'll talk about that, I'm sure, in a moment. But we were all worried about McDavid. I didn't even think that Dry wouldn't show up. So look, man, you already lost, and I don't want to put any more on you. And the chances that Leon Draisaitl's listening to this is probably slim to none. But if you are, Pally, this is on you, man. Like, we all put it all on McDavid. He did his part. You didn't do yours, man.
Hell, even the other depth guys did their parts. Warren Fogle, Connor Brown, Josh Holloway. Who else had a? I'm trying to. I forget right now, but those 3 guys. Janmark.
Janmark scored last night.
Oh my gosh, those depth guys came through big time. So imagine if Dry would have scored a handful of goals, gotten a couple of points. We could very well be saying Edmonton was the Stanley Cup champions. But like you said, he was ghost. He pulled an Austin Matthews for sure.
Yeah. So we can't move on from that part of the this part of the conversation without mentioning that. I brought up the Conn Smythe. McDavid's the Conn Smythe. Look, man, it's hard. It's hard to argue against somebody who just beat a Gretzky record, right? Like, I think that's carrying like the majority of the conversation. And I think if game 4 doesn't happen, it's handily Bob. But I still think it should have been Bob. Like, he showed up when it mattered last night, with the cup on the line. You like to see. I would have liked to have seen the team that won lifting the Conn Smythe. And, maybe that's just a me thing. But it's hard to argue. Again, it's hard to argue against a guy who just beat a Gretzky record. So I guess that's the majority there.
I mean, yeah, and I get everything you're saying. I mean, again, at the end of the day, it's the entire playoffs MVP. So, being the leading scorer, breaking records, it's difficult not to give it to him. And it had it not been for that 8-goal, I guess Bob got pulled at 5 or 6.
Right.
I forget exactly what it was. If it wasn't for that game, I think he very well would have gotten it. But that game is a big standout of like, ooh, that's not an MVP performance. You know what I mean? Like, that really threw it off. I don't know. I guess I'm indifferent about it at the end of the day because, I mean, who cares about the Conn Smythe? Bob still got a cup. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, I feel empathetic for McDavid because, like, I don't give a crap about a Conn Smythe. I wanted the cup. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, obviously, and I don't think he came out to accept it. They definitely didn't show it. Like, I wouldn't have come out to accept it. Like, I just lost. We just lost. Like, I don't want an individual award. I want the Stanley Cup. So, maybe hopefully there'll be some fuel to, I mean, not that Connor really needs any more fuel. Like, honestly, he did like you said, he did everything that he possibly could, without being in net too, to stop the pucks. But, so I don't really have an answer other than that. I wouldn't want to win it as the losing team. It probably could have gone to Bob easily, but he gets the cup, so it's fine, whatever. So, and he's probably going to win the Vezina. So
yeah. So to that point, though, speaking of Bob, our friend Tina, who we do a lot of episodes of Deprogram with, they're a huge hockey fan as we are. I was watching their Twitter feed last night, and they said something along the lines of being in tears over Sergei Bobrovsky lifting the Stanley Cup. And they're a goalie person too, like we are. But there was something to that, Kachuk, talking about his dad and his brother, and Bob and Okposo, as now you mentioned before, like some of these guys who've kind of been grinding at it. And even OEL, I know we talked about him being kind of, he was taking penalties. I think it was in game 4, dude, come on. You guys are getting worked.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see all these guys who've kind of just been grinding at it to get one. And look, man, I've grown a huge man crush on Barkov. I love me some Alexander Barkov.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing him do it too, like he's a quality captain. So it just, everything about it felt right. You know what I mean? Like just seeing those guys lift the cup, it was, I don't want to say surreal. It wasn't that, but it was nice. It was a nice hockey moment for a guy who's only 2.5, 3 seasons come back into hockey as much as I have.
I mean, you talked about Tina in their Twitter feed. Like, dude, I was crying from the moment that the game was over until I turned the TV off at about 11:45 after all the interviews and stuff. Again, the Panthers aren't even my team, but in a way they have been my team because we've seen them come from where they started last year when we started the show. I got to go and see them. Well, we saw them multiple times last year, right? Or I saw them multiple times, I should say, and so I have a soft spot in my heart because I've been to that barn and I love that barn. I've ranked that one number 1, I believe, right, in my rankings list. Or Columbus, I guess, turned out to be number 1.
Columbus is now, yeah.
But I mean, Florida's barn is like number 1 in my heart. You know what I mean? I loved that barn. So in a way, I love this team, and seeing those guys again. I wanted them to win so bad, and like you said, they grinded it out. Guys like Chucky, guys like Okposo. Swaggy's won before, but Reinhardt. Those guys to overcome their crappy series to win the game for the team. You know what I mean? Like, and like we talked about with Paul Maurice, and then Bob. We remember used to say Officer Bob, like he's good for 4 goals. This man has been just lights out for 2 years. That is an insane stat line for him, truly. So yeah, I mean, to go back to that, I was crying for 45 minutes of tears of joy. Like, dude, it's not my team, but it feels like my team. I feel like I'm with them in celebration because they, I gave that stat earlier in the show, 4 years of losing, and they finally overcame and got the devil off their back. So, I just stick taps to them.
So we'll leave it there for now. We might have one or more two more episodes to close out this season before we go on a little bit of a break over the summer. But there's a couple huge trades happened.
Oh yeah, Justin, I got it right here for you. I want to ask you about how you feel about this one, Justin. The Calgary Flames deal Jacob Markstrom to your New Jersey Devils in return for Kevin Ball, a 23-year-old defenseman, and a 2025 first-round pick, and the draft pick is top 10 protected. How do you feel about that?
I love it. Like, I was hesitant at first because at first it just says Markstrom to the Devils, right? Like, that's how the news breaks. And I'm like, 34-year-old goalie. It's like, let me see what this return is. We give up Ball. That stinks because he's young. He got a lot of minutes last year. He was third pair. Like, I think he's got a high ceiling. He's a big dude. I feel like he can, I think he has room to grow. But we get a guy who you pair him with Jake Allen for next season. And, I'm not saying it's going to suddenly be lights out, but like you saw what we were able to do with Jake Allen and Capo Kakinen at the end of last year. Like, it didn't result in a lot of wins, but like it was better played hockey games, tighter hockey games. We weren't letting in balloons. Like, I hate to put it all on V2, but like that guy was letting in like beach balls, like 6 of them every game. So. Yeah. It tightens down the net a little bit. So I love that. And I love the return, man. Like we gave up Ball, we gave up a protected first, and the Flames retained 30% of his salary. That's a good trade. Like, any way you look at it, if we get half of what Markstrom's capable of, it's still a good trade. So if you pull back from 34-year-old goaltender who's been hurt and just look at the actual trade, that's a killer trade. We got a good deal.
Well, listen, the part of that too is like Allen is such a good backup. So and a true backup. So Markstrom now, when he's in Calgary, having to start 60 plus games because there's nobody else. I mean, I guess they had Vladar, and I forget the other guy that they had.
Wolf?
Riddick, I think, was there for a little bit. But either way, like it was like Markstrom. It was all on Markstrom to have to win these games, right? Well, now with Jake Allen, you can have a true tandem, and very possibly Markstrom could come back into form that he was a couple of years ago when Calgary made their playoff run. You know what I mean? When Johnny Hockey, who is now on milk cartons, scored 100-plus points. When Matty Tkachuk was still a Calgary Flame, like that, Jacob Markstrom. Is it going to happen? Time will tell. But to take the pressure off of him, to not have to start 3/4 of the games, I think is a huge thing for a goalie at 34. I mean, look at Bob. Look at Bob. Well, how Bob has turned his career around. It's very possible that can happen. Is it going to? Again, time will tell. But I like it for the Devils. It's way better than V2 and Schmid. So I'm here for it. I think it could turn out well. We don't spend too much time on this, but Ty Dellandrea went to the Sharks from the Dallas Stars and returned for a 2025 4th-round pick that was originally the Winnipeg Jets. And also the Sharks claimed Barclay Goodrow off of waivers from the New York Rangers. The Sharks, I'm not saying they're loading up, but they seem to be getting some veterans to have around this going to be very young team who is definitely going to be in the basement for a couple of years, but they're going to be drafting Macklin Celebrini here next week. They signed Will Smith, not the rapper or movie star, but the hockey player. So they got a couple of young guns coming to the team. I like these moves that the San Jose Sharks are making, putting some vets around them. Again, they're going to be in the basement still, but I like this because maybe they won't be at the very basement. Maybe they'll be on like the 2nd or 3rd floor of the basement, which will be improvement.
Well, it's better to be Montreal or Chicago where you're in the basement, but like you have pieces and you could be better, right? Like,
yeah,
than to be, in the basement like the Sharks were last year and you're just terrible. You're just not a good hockey club. I feel like Fabian Zetterlund really stuck out last season. Like he got so much ice time just due to he's the only one.
Right.
He had some good improvement. Obviously, the net is a question. Blackwood looked decent in the few games he played. You've got Vanacek there now. I forgot they got a young goalie at the end of the year. I forget his name, unfortunately, who was looking like a stud. So again, looks like they have some pieces there. To your point, do these moves get them out of the basement? No, but like it's in the basement with. They might be a good team to watch. They might be a fun team to watch. So not getting run off the ice every week.
Right. I don't even want to spend too much time on this, but the Washington Capitals dealt Darcy Kemper to the Los Angeles Kings, and they picked up Pierre-Luc Douchebag. So we got rid of a crappy goalie for $5.5 million, and we gained a crappy position player for $3 million more. So this is a great move by the Washington Capitals. Absolutely love it. Just terrible move. Absolutely terrible. I mean, it's the definition of insanity. Why do you think this guy is going to be any different than what he's been? Why? Why are you taking a chance on this guy? It is a terrible move. Good luck. Great. I can't wait for him to score 20 points next year or be injured or say that he wants to trade or something because he's a loser. Anyway,
what is it like? This will be his 5th team in 7 years or something, like something ridiculous. One thing I'll say about it is, not necessarily hats off, but right before the trade happened, I guess that the Kings GM or owner or somebody was like, we didn't do a good job of putting anything around this guy. And it's like, okay, sure. But
false.
Also, even if that's true,
you have to perform no matter what opportunities or lack of opportunities you are given. You get what you earn. So earn it. You still get minutes on the ice. Right? Doesn't matter if you're a 3rd or 4th line guy. You still get minutes, so make the most of them. That's it.
The last thing I'll say is I really truly don't understand this trade from Washington's standpoint at all.
I don't either. Like, let's pick up $3 million more in a cap that we already don't have a lot of room to play with. That's smart. And we're going to get a guy like PLD.
Right.
Good job. We had a problem. The Capitals had a problem scoring goals last year. Guess what? Guess what? You didn't increase goal scoring.
Yeah.
So, moving on. The biggest trade that happened, I guess it was yesterday. The Boston Bruins acquire Jonas Korpisalo from the Ottawa Senators, a prospect, center, and a first-round pick in 2024, the 25th overall pick. And they send Linus Ullmark to the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa retains 25% of Korpisalo's contract. Massive move. Take it away. What are your thoughts?
So I'll start by this. On paper, I love this move. There's nothing to dissect here. This is a smart move for Ottawa. This is a smart move.
Great. It's great for Ottawa.
And it's a smart move for Boston. You move a guy who's probably going to have to go anyway, right? And you get a solid 1B with Corpy coming back,
and they need center.
And you get a prospect center. You get a draft pick. On paper, this is a tremendous trade. Now, again, Ullmark has way more upside than Corpy. I don't know that Corpy was the problem in Ottawa last year is my biggest thing. And I guess bringing in Ullmark closes the gap that much more between being out of playoff conversation to being in conversation. There's something going on in Ottawa, and I don't know what it is, and I hope it doesn't bleed into Ullmark. That's where I'll leave it, because I love this trade on paper. I think ultimately this is you take this deal. Of course you take this deal. But is that the problem? And does this solve whatever problems you had is my question.
I mean, Ullmark obviously we saw him win the Vezina last year and have a solid year this year, but Swayman stepped up. So Boston, decided Swayman is our guy. And that's fair. He's younger. You got him for more years. Ullmark's going to be a UFA at the end of next year. So, it's smart to get rid of it, basically. And you pick up Jonas Korpisalo, who is $2 million less, and you get him for 4 years. Or excuse me, it's even going to be less than that because Ottawa's retention. So you basically, free up whatever that math. I can't math in my head, that, guys. You free up a few $1 million to replenish your roster and get a serviceable goaltender. Like Corpy's not bad, in the same situation when he was in Columbus. Was it really his fault that his numbers are so bad? I don't think so. Like you said, is it really so bad that he didn't do great in Ottawa? Defense wasn't really that good. So I'd be interested to see what he looks like as the backup in Boston with a solid team around him.
Mm-hmm.
So great trade all around, honestly. Ottawa gets a goalie finally. And everything I just said, it'll be a true test of this trade, how Ullmark fares being the 1A guy with Anton Forsberg as the 1B in Ottawa. If defense is bad and Ullmark falters, well, we know that it wasn't Corpy's fault, right? Or if Ullmark succeeds with a crappy defense around him, well, then we know that Ullmark is a superstar and Ottawa made the right choice.
Yeah. So. Well, and I guess last thing I'll say on this move is I hope it works out for Ottawa. Both you and I had high hopes for them going into this season. I always have a quiet rooting interest in Ottawa. And
they just have to show me, I hope that they're successful. I really do. I've taken I'll believe it when I see it now this year coming up.
for sure.
I
Unfortunately,
put my heart and soul into you, and you let me down. So I'll believe it when I see it.
is that all the moves though? I feel like there was one other one, but it's escaping me anyway.
There was a Minnesota Wild and Nashville Predators move, but I don't know the guys. So Graham Clark and Ozzy Wallstad or something like that.
That's right. Yeah.
That's
right.
A couple guys signed. Casey Middlestat extended in Colorado, so they got him at the trade deadline last year, extended him. Andrew Cogliano retired from the Colorado Avalanche, so he's going to be part of their system now. I forget what else happened.
Oh, the Devils re-signed Nick DeSimone, defenseman.
Okay.
he's probably their seventh D. Like his less than $1 million AAV. Okay. So
well, hey, all right. You gotta have guys on the roster. So you gotta sign guys. So
yep.
That works. Yeah, I don't think I don't know what else or if anything else happened so far. Corey's guy Mitchkov has been released from his KHL contract, so he'll be coming over to Philly, I guess.
Oh wow, sooner than expected.
I guess. So I guess, we'll believe it. I'll believe it when I see it. Then I'll be a year short of when I told him that it won't matter. But but he's not here anyway. So what does it matter?
Hey-o.
Hey-o. I was trying to stall and look real quick if there was another news story that anybody had posted. So just talk amongst yourselves for a minute.
I can stall with a couple PWHL notes. Number one, we talked last time about Brittany Curl, and she's come out with a very clearly prepared PR statement of apology. So it is what it is. It's prepared apology, but it is a step. So, hopefully she means what she says, and hopefully going forward, we can kind of just put this behind her, and hopefully this is not the person she is. Also, the PWHL did note that they will be playing a lot more neutral site games this coming season. So hopefully Washington is one of them, because a 3-hour trip would be super awesome to go see the PWHL. I'd very much like that.
Agreed. I just checked Daily Faceoff. There wasn't any other new news, right. But free agency is a week away. July 1st is free agency, so there'll be a lot that happens then. Re-signings, trades, then the draft is I forget when the draft is. 3rd, something like that. It's next week. I know it's next week. So
it's soon.
Yeah. So exciting stuff. Real exciting stuff. So it is the end of June. That's the last thing I want to say is so is the final going to end at in July, mid-July next year? Because there's 2 stoppages that are going to happen next year: the All-Star Game and the Four Nation Faceoff.
Whoa.
So when is the season going to end next year? July? It's insane, dude. Why? I mean, I love hockey, obviously. I stayed up last night way past my bedtime, so
yeah.
I'm probably not passed out right now. But, dude, hockey season shouldn't go into late June. It just shouldn't. Think about this real quick. I'll leave you with this, and then you can take it away. So the Panthers just won the Cup last night, June 24th, and now there has to be a parade, of course, and then everybody gets their day with the Cup. So by that time, it's going to be September by the time the last guy has their day with the Cup.
Yeah.
And then there's training camp, which will be 2 weeks, and preseason. And then you get going again. There's no time to rest at all.
Yeah.
So, Florida and Edmonton are going to have a tough probably start to get going, more than likely, with very little rest. Though McDavid's probably hit the gym this morning at 2 a.m., knowing him, which is great.
Yeah. So as mentioned before, I think we're going to take – I'd imagine we take a couple weeks at least off. It was a long season, y'all, and we've been going since last March. So we're going to take at least a couple weeks off. I would count on probably most of the summer. We'll probably be gone unless something major breaks. We'll come on and We'll
probably pop in after the draft and a few days of free agency, and talk about the things that happened. And then, something like that.
And then we'll get back to it like somewhere in late summer. So I think that does it. I think it does it, right?
I think that's it. Yeah. I mean, I think we've covered it. I think we've hit all our bullet points, made all our checks, dumped the pucks on sticks, sticks on pucks in the net. But I mean, honestly, we'll say it one more time. Not that they're listening, but maybe they are. Obviously, congratulations to the Florida Panthers, but truly an outstanding season to the Edmonton Oilers, from last to second. But I mean, that's still a good turnaround.
It's huge. Yeah.
three big win streaks that they put together in this year to get to where they are. So there's no denying that. 2 5-0s and then a 16-0. So I mean, dude.
And then they almost did the ultimate one in the cup.
Yeah, they almost did the first ever reverse sweep.
Yeah.
So, I mean, good for them. Good for them. Okay, well, I guess that's it. So until next time, keep your head up, play to the whistle, stick taps and sellies, boys. Clap it up.
Whee!